Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NorthStar Community. It's so good to be here. Hope everyone's doing well, and as we continue on this journey of recovery. So again, just a reminder, we on Friday night we had several new people there, and so it was good to kind of go back and remind ourselves. But remember, addiction, recovery, we tend to always think about substances, which obviously that is part of it. But I think the much bigger addictions are compulsive behaviors where we do destructive things over and over again, and we just can't stop. And sometimes these compulsive behaviors by themselves aren't so bad. It's just the amount of time or magnitude of importance they are in our lives. And then, of course, we get addicted to people. And what I see there is what we do when we talk about co-addiction. Like I said, Melody Beatty's formal definition of codependency or co-addiction is that I become focused on a person and then I become obsessed with their behaviors. So that certainly is one definition, but there's other definitions too. What codependency really is built around is that we don't see ourselves as valuable and important and loving as ourselves. So we think we either have to control things or we have to give up ourselves all the time to be in a successful relationship, and neither one of those are true. And so that's what gives us so much trouble there. So huge amounts of co-addiction, codependency. So basically we become addicted to people, and they're how we read them, of course, what that really means. So we get the three addictions, and we just have to keep reminding ourselves that probably for most of us we have more than one of those areas. And so we always look at, what we've been looking at recently is what causes us to relapse, but really we could really be talking about this is what causes us to begin the journey of addiction anyway. And so what it really comes down to, again, as we always talk about so much, is it really is about how we loathe ourselves. We see ourselves as flawed. We see ourselves as inadequate, not smart enough. We could go down the list. And so it really creates a lot of toxic shame, and we develop a toxic shame reactions to what's happened to us in our lives. For a lot of us, early childhood stuff, and then, of course, maybe in our young adult or wherever. But it all gets back to the toxic shame we feel in our lives. And I always tell people, I really think if you take substances, compulsive behaviors, and relationships, you really look at that, it's toxic shame is what we're really addicted to. We just hate ourselves. We loathe ourselves. We don't see ourselves as valuable. Don't see ourselves as lovable. And so we do all sorts of crazy things from there. Because, if you think about it, I can say when I'm in an addictive mode, it is easier for me to be addictive and live addictively than it is to live clean and sober, because I don't want to face my pain. And that's what recovery is all about, is understanding our toxic shame, stopping what we're doing, and figuring out ways to live again. And so today we're going to talk about, and so what happens, of course, is, I think everybody relapses at some point. You could argue that with me, but I think we do. So we're talking about relapsing, and so the one I'm talking about today, again, we talked about this a little bit, I talked about this a little bit last week, talk about some more, is the confining walls we build. We build emotional fences around ourselves to keep us safe. One of the things that I think Dr. Vanderkolk talks about in his book, The Body Keeps a Score, and it's just such a powerful statistic, is that 72% of obese women were sexually abused in their life at some point. And that makes so much sense if you think about it, because when you talk to people who are obese, what they'll tell you is, people aren't mean to me. I just don't exist. We just are ignored. People look past us. So if you think about it, what a perfect strategy to stay safe. I've known women who have gone through very difficult childhoods or very difficult sexual assault stories who have become obese, and then they lose weight and they start being seen again, and it's very, very uncomfortable. And it really throws them off. So that's a sign that we're doing some things healthily, but we haven't dealt with the pain and the agony of what happened to us. So I'm going to read. I always like to look for stories in the Bible that are addictive. And so Matthew 5 is about, a lot of us recognize this story, but it's about the guy, the crazy man who was in the cemetery and all that. And I remember the first time I heard Richard Rohr talk about this, he was talking about how this was really a story about addiction. Just back then, the biblical authors did not know how to write about addiction, so this is how they did it. Again, you can argue that, but certainly every time that we've talked about this scripture in NorthStar, everybody relates to it. So that would tell us something. They arrived on the other side of the sea in the country of Gerasenes. As Jesus got out of the boat, a madman from the cemetery came up to him. He lived there among the tombs and graves. No one could restrain him. He couldn't be chained, couldn't be tied down. He had been tied up many times with chains and ropes, but he broke the chains, snapped the ropes. No one was strong enough to get him to quit using. Oh, no, that's not what it said. No one was strong enough to tame him. Night and day he roamed through the graves and the hills, screaming out and slashing himself with sharp stones. When he saw Jesus a long way off, he ran and bowed in worship before him, then howled in protest. What business do you have, Jesus, Son of the high God, messing with me? I swear to God, don't give me a hard time. Jesus had just commanded the tormenting evil spirit out. Get out of the man. Jesus asked him, tell me your name. He replied, my name is Mob. I'm a rioting mob. Then he desperately begged Jesus to banish them from the country nearby hill. A large herd of pigs was grazing and rooting on a nearby hill. The demons begged him, send us to the pigs so we can live in them. Jesus gave the order, but it was even worse for the pigs than for the man. Crazed, they stampeded over a cliff into the sea and drowned. Those tending the pigs, scared to death, bolted and told their story in town and country. Everyone wanted to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the madman sitting there wearing decent clothes and making sense, no longer a walking madhouse of a man. Those who had seen it told the others what had happened to the demon-possessed man and the pigs. At first they were in awe, and then they were upset. Upset over the drowned pigs. I don't know, sorry to keep a straight face on that. They demanded that Jesus leave and not come back to talk to the talk of the town, not to come back talk of the town. So I know if you haven't been in the recovery world, you may be going, wow, I don't really get this. Sounds like one of those crazy old Bible stories where they didn't understand schizophrenia and blah, blah, blah. But if you really, but people who are in recovery, which all of you are, if you wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't, can relate to this story. Isolated, crazy, unrestrained. How many times have people said to you, if you don't stop, you're going to wreak havoc in your life, you're going to die, you're going to lose your job, your family, all that stuff. We all know those stories. We've all had them said to us probably, and we still kept using. We couldn't stop. We just couldn't do it. So those chains of addiction were on us. Nobody could stop us. Well-meaning family and friends have tried to stop us. We ourselves have tried to stop us. Professionals have tried to stop us, and many times it just hasn't worked. And then, of course, in comes rehab or whatever. You know, Jesus comes in, and the demons go away, the addictions go away, and guess what? The family and friends turn on us because we don't know what to do with this, because we're so used to the addiction and all that stuff, and it's threatening, and we don't like it. And so I think this is actually, you can at least go down a path that this story you can relate to as an addict. Like I said, I've never had addicts not respond to that story and say, oh, my gosh, yes, absolutely. And so when I do these talks, I always make the assumption I'm talking to people who are addicted and who are in recovery. Some of you may be in pain and wanting to recover but not really doing it. So there's a whole magnitude of who the audience is here. But I'm assuming everyone here is in some level of recovery. So I was talking to a friend the other day, and he's watching me in Wisconsin, Ohio, and Illinois. Got it? Those three? And so, see, I get to add more states to people listen to me. So keep moving around and listen to me. I claim more states. But we have to understand, so confining walls, why is this a subject in relapse? Well, it's absolutely a subject in relapse, and it really is a subject in addiction, is that when we become addicted, we lose ourselves. We lose who we are. and we come up with some of the craziest, nuttiest thinking stuff. I mean, it's just amazing the stuff we come up with. And the problem is when we confine ourselves, there's no one there to tell us to stop. There's no one to say, that's really crazy what you're doing right there. I mean, think about some of the things you have said in the same sentence. That's what I always like to make fun of people about. So we'll say, in the same sentence, we'll say, I really got to stop smoking. It's killing me. You know what? I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. Nobody can make me do anything. You know what? I need this. I need to get off social media. I mean, I'm on here 6 hours a day. Well, I need to look and see what my friends are doing, show them I care. I mean, you hear how we do this. It's so, we are the madman in the cemetery being crazy. It just doesn't look as crazy. You know, some of us do look pretty crazy, let's be honest, when we're in the depths of our stuff. But we have to keep reminding ourselves that addiction is a no-fault disease. We just got to keep reminding ourselves of that. We were talking about that on Friday night, and one of the people in there was a school counselor, and I said to her, how many kids have come to you and they've said, my goal is to be an addict? And, of course, she said none. Nobody sets out to be an addict. We become addicts because of the pain. We become addicts because of the emotional heartache, pain, and misery that happen to us in our lives. And like I always say, the problem with trauma in families particularly is the trauma itself is bad, but what makes it worse is the silence that follows. Nobody talks about it. It just gets glossed over, and then it happens again, and it happens again. Nobody talks about it. Finally, sometimes someone will have the courage to leave, maybe. It's like, again, like Dr. Vanderkolk was saying in his book, The Body Keeps Score, which is I tell everybody they need to read that book. He talks about all the years he worked with kids who came from abusive homes. I mean, terribly abusive homes. Every one of them wanted to go back. When they got removed from the home, they all wanted to go back. That tells you how powerful the family systems are, and then throw dysfunction with that, and it makes it so difficult. I always tell, I'll have people come to me and they say, I want to get healthier. I want to do the right things. I'm tired of this. And I say, well, it's going to be really hard, right? And they kind of go, yeah, it will be. I tell them, no, it's going to be really bad because you're taking on the family dysfunction. Your families, from you who are from dysfunctional families, parades do not get thrown for you when you do the right things because you're a threat. And growing up, nobody ever talked about anything. The abuse just went on and on. The dysfunction went on and on. The abusing of alcohol, the crazy behaviors, the acting out, all those things that we saw as kids with our parents. And as kids, we don't have the sophistication, so we just assume it's us. So we grow up. We become adults. We assume there's something wrong with us. We see all the flaws in us. We don't judge others so harshly, but man, do we judge ourselves. And then we start deciding that maybe other people are a threat to us because we keep getting hurt by them because we keep putting ourselves in front of the wrong people. And so we build walls that keep us safe. But you know what the problem is, and we know this, is when we build our walls too well, we become very lonely. Loneliness is one of the outcomes of a well-built wall. And the problem with loneliness is then we don't get better because we don't have anybody telling us to do anything else. So if you guys have listened to me, I love Ad Astra because I think it's such a NorthStar movie. So I'm going to read a little bit. I love these scripts because they capture the essence of dysfunctional thinking in very kind of calm ways. So Brad Pitt's the star of this movie. His name's Roy something. His dad is a world-renowned legend astronaut. This is in the near future. I would say probably 50 years ahead in time, as we kind of think it will look. So every day he has to do a psychological evaluation to a computer, to AI. And so his scene is what you've seen from this movie so far. He's very flat. He doesn't get. He just flat. He's built these walls around him to stay safe, and also be very good as an astronaut, by the way. So he's an astronaut, and so this is his psychological evaluation. His wife comes home She glares at him because he is not connected with her at a long time. I am calm and steady, no bad dreams, ready to do my job to the best of my abilities. I am focused only on the essential to the exclusion of all else. I will only make pragmatic decisions. I will not allow myself to be distracted. I will not allow my mind to linger on things that are unimportant, which in this case means people. I will not rely on anyone or anything. I will not be vulnerable to mistakes. Doesn't he sound fun? Sounds like a fun way to live. But that's what he's done. He's built a wall around him because of the pain of his childhood. So then he talks about, this is where we kind of get to the confining wall, and we talk about the porcupine index. So he's walking into a room with other astronauts, and you can see him. They're all bantering and all this stuff, and he's talking, so we hear him talking to himself. He goes, I see myself from the outside. I smile. I present a side. It's a performance with my eye on the exit, always on the exit. As this guy comes towards me and goes, just don't touch me. Of course the guy does. Alone and uneasy, I understand. Here I am comfortable. My self-destructive side, that is what she used to say to me. I should feel something. I survived. I should feel something. So I hope we can relate to this. I'm reading this because I hope a lot of you can relate to this. For you that have been hurt, or you that are in the throes of your addiction right now, your hurts, habits, and hang-ups, that you're doing this for a reason. The reason is a good one. You're doing this to stay safe. You're tired of being hurt. You're tired of being harmed. And then throw in the toxic shame because we loathe ourselves. We don't feel we're worthy of being loved. We're not worthy of being liked. So the wall makes a lot of sense to us. The porcupine index, let you close, but I'll let you in. I'll let you close. You might know my name. I'll smile at you. I'll talk to you, but you're not going to get close to me. That's the porcupine index. So then we go further into the movie, and there's a violent scene that happens with a crazed baboon in another spaceship who kills one of his crew members. So he comes back to the ship, and this is him talking again. He goes, I understand that rage. I've seen it in my father. I've seen that rage in me. Because I'm angry, he took off. He left us. I looked at that anger in me. I pushed that anger aside. All I see is hurt and the pain. It keeps me walled off from relationships, from really caring for someone. I don't know how to get past that, to get around that. I don't want to be that man. I don't want to be my father. So you hear his toxic shame talking. Do you hear his fear? He doesn't want to harm others. He doesn't believe he's valuable and worthy. No one would love him because his father didn't, and so he just pushes everybody away. So as addicts, we're so sensitive emotionally. The smallest things make us mad. And I hope you guys have humor about this, but I always joke about when I'll meet with people who are addicted, and I'll say, no one's more stressed than an addict. No one has more problems than an addict. No one's more misunderstood than an addict. No, it's not true. It's because what we do, because we go out and wreck lives. We wreck our own lives. We keep people away that will help us. We have such poor self-image. We expect the worst. We call it morbid thinking or morbid expectations. We don't say, man, I can't wait for a month and now it's going to be awesome. And, of course, we have anger issues. So the wall makes sense in many ways. It keeps us from being put down, keeps us from being criticized. It keeps us from being rejected, keeps us from being judged for all the crazy things we do when we're addicted. But we got here because of all the crazy things we think about ourselves before we became addicted. None of you out here are bad people. I really believe that. We do some bad things, but God knows your heart. That's the beauty of this. So we build a wall to defend our pain. We build this protective wall around ourselves and the rest of the world. We keep family, we keep friends, we keep institutions away from us. And the worst part is we don't see we're doing it. This is what we do. It's to keep us safe. It makes sense. Many of us have been hurt so bad in our lives, it makes sense for us to build this wall. But what it really does, just like all other addictive behaviors, it adds more pain to our lives. We develop these strategies to create safety, to keep people away. We have no one there to help us to see our craziness in this. We become chronic loners. And only time that we associate with others is to anesthetize ourselves. So it's usually not healthy. But with this isolation, we withdraw passively. We just keep away from people. I mean, think about it. For you guys that get out there on the screen time, you're on there for 6 hours a night. It's so easy. It's so safe. You don't have to expose yourself. You can be angry. You can do all these things, but nobody's sitting there by you. The loneliness I see in people, it's like, I guess my analogy is going to the beach and there's thousands of people around you and I don't even notice them. I guess it's kind of the same there. The guy that wrote the 21 Lessons for the 21st Century talked about how the digital world has changed everything so much. He goes, we reconnect with our long-lost cousin in Iraq, but we don't talk to the person sitting beside us. That's how we build walls. I know kids who don't have one friend in person, but they claim friends all over the world. And I go, well, tell me about them. Oh, you can't ask them that. You can't really do that. Like, I'll be sitting in my office talking to somebody, in particular I do with teens, and I'll go, and they'll say, do you have friends? They go, oh, I have friends. I said, well, give me their names. And you should see the number. They can't give me a name. We need people to live. We are built that way. Now, some of you out there, you're introverted. I'm kind of introverted. There's times I wished I didn't have so many people in my life, but I am smart enough to know to be grateful for that. And extroverts, of course, you know that one. But we keep people at a distance by being self-righteous, hypercritical, obnoxious. Those are strategies we use. You know, the porcupine index, that wall, it spares us from the anticipated discomfort of associating with others because we have so many bad stories about that happening to us. And then you add the morbid thinking to it, we're going to assume that's going to continue. But you know what it does? It takes us away from the companionships we so much want. So like a porcupine, we wish to be with others, but we fear the quills will sting. So come too close, it's painful. Too distant, it's lonely. So that's the porcupine index. How do I keep people close enough they won't hurt me, but distant enough, but not so distant I'm lonely? A lot of work, isn't it? It's a lot of work. So we try to come up with ways to achieve companionship while avoiding being hurt. And I hate to say, but that's what the digital stuff can do for us. But think about the energy and the time we spend on this. And think of all the healthy people we run off, or we never get to in the first place. But the wall keeps the stings away, keeps us safe. But you know what? This very wall becomes a prison to us. It can destroy us. So we lie, we disappoint, we manipulate, we resent, we criticize, we live with anger, we live with self-centeredness around our toxic shame, all of it with the idea of keeping people away. But we hate it. So then family and friend will make their efforts to try to break through the wall. They get hurt badly. We do things to harm them, or we do more to keep them away. And we build this all around the faulty assumption that there's something inherently wrong with us. But there are ways around this, but you got to do some stuff. The only way you can recover, and I'll say this again, you have to get yourself with others. You will never, ever recover by yourself. I have never seen it, and I never will. I can tell you that. You have to get around other people. If you've relapsed, get in front of other people. If you're using and you just cannot stop and you're now getting that it's harming you, you're getting you're lonely and you're sad, you got to get with other people. Support groups, that's what they're about. You're associating with other people who share the same expertise in building walls. They're really good at it, but they are probably further down the road in their recovery, and they knew that was harming them. In support groups, you don't have to fear being rejected. You're not going to be rejected. And I hate to break it to you, sometimes we want to believe this in our toxic shame. You're not that unique. You're not going to probably tell a story we haven't already heard. The number of times I see people come to NorthStar and they go, oh, you just don't know my story. They start telling their story to about 12 people, and they're going, that's my story too. It's such a relief when you see that, when you're not alone. It's not that we're happy other people are suffering, but it's helpful to know you're not the only one. And not only that, but if you go long enough, you'll see people who were where you were, or maybe even worse off, and actually not doing too bad now. You can do that. You can have a rich, full, meaningful life. I know a lot of you don't think that's possible, but you can. We can learn, as Dr. Tversky says there, he goes, we learned that many respectable people who were at one time active addicts, like ourselves, share the same emotions and the character traits. But now they've dealt with it. They're getting better. The 12-step logic is very simple. Only people who have suffered in some way can save another. Deep communion and deep compassion is formed much more through shared pain than shared pleasure. Jesus told Peter in Luke, he says, Peter, you must be ground like wheat, and once you have recovered, then you can turn and help your brothers. Ta-da! That's what groups do. What you can see in support groups, too, is you'll see people who were maybe worse off than you were are now good and decent people. And that's our goal here, to be good and decent people. So I always say this with humor, and everybody that comes to NorthStar always, okay, here we go. But it's so true. The most important part of our treatment plan is rule number 1, get healthy people in your lives. If rule number 1 doesn't work, try rule number 2, get healthy people in our lives. If the first 2 rules don't work, try rule number 3, get healthy people in your life. It's the only way you can recover. It's the only way you can learn to connect again. It's the only way you can find yourself again. And also you have to realize that God loves you. God is love. Once you realize that you're not alone, now certainly when we're acting out and misbehaving, we get a little worried about that one when we go, wait a minute, you mean God's seeing what I'm doing right now? But you got to remember, God is love. He knows your true heart. He doesn't see your addictive self. He knows your true heart. God is with us. Perhaps because if we know that, we can find meaning and connect the dots. And it's in our pain that we can see the crucified and resurrected Jesus. Jesus came to this earth to die for us so that we may live again. So if we can just remember that, we have a loving, a sustaining God that loves us. And we always talk about how God's grace, which means you don't have to do anything other than just trust God. That's really what it amounts to. There's nothing any of you've done that's bigger than God's love for you. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I think we hear too many times from our parents and our dysfunctional families about God judging us and God knowing and blah, blah, blah. Don't listen to it. God is love. He wants to join with us to be loved and to love you. And really, it's only the combination of human tears and God's divine love that opens the floodgates to both. So here's your chance. Turn to God. I mean, how's it going to harm you to at least think that God is love? And then you've got to suck up your courage. You've got to figure out a way to do it and get yourself to a support group. It's the only way. So I'll go back to Ad Astra for one more moment. So Brad Pitt's character has now he went out to find his dad. His dad rejected him in the last, in a very cruel way. His dad is now dead. He's coming back to Earth. It's going to be, I think in the movie, it's like 9 months. So this is him talking. Again, he goes, I'm alone, something that I always thought I would prefer. I confess it's wearing on me. I've let so many people down. I'm so selfish. I've not been there for others. But the good news is he gets back to Earth. He's living his life. And this is his last evaluation we hear in the movie. And that I've always said to me This is a blueprint of what rich, full, meaningful life should be. I am steady and calm. I sleep well, and I have no bad dreams. I am active and engaged. I am aware of my surroundings and those that are in my immediate sphere. I am attentive. I'm unsure of the future, but I am not concerned. I am focused on the essentials and at the exclusion of all else. I will rely on those closest to me, and I will share their dreams and burdens as they share mine. I will live in love. Pretty good, huh? So, NorthStar Community, we meet on Wednesdays and Fridays at 6:30. So if you're new, nobody ever believes me, but we actually have full meals on Friday night. And it's been really good. And all new people, you always come and eat before you come because you don't believe me. It's not a bunch of pizzas just thrown out. Once in a while we do. But on the whole, we have a full meal. It's so cool. And we have childcare, so you can't use that one either. For all your porcupine index reasons you're going to come up with, we've tried to take away as many of them as we can. We're a safe group. We're not going to sell you anything. We're not going to sign you up to anything. It doesn't cost any money. We'll feed you. We have child care. What else can I say? It's your turn now to drop the confining wall and figure out a way to get here, if you're local. So, again, Wednesdays at 6:30, Fridays at 6:30, Walnut Grove Baptist Church, 7046 Cold Harbor Road in Mechanicsville. For you that aren't local, you can call me. You can email me. I'm easy to get a hold of, 804-746-5081 is my phone number. You can leave a message for me, or you can email me at csimpson@wgva.church. Anyway, you can sit in your house and be miserable, not trusting everybody, write everybody off, don't let anybody get to know you. You can do all those things and keep using and destroying your life, or you can take the risk, find a support group where you live, they're everywhere, and figure out a way to get your life back. It's worth it. You can do it. It will be painful, but you can do it. So we always close our our meetings with the prayer of serenity. This is such a beautiful prayer when you really hear what's going on. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything right. You just got to trust Jesus a little bit. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that Jesus will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and next. Amen. So again, thank you for joining, and have a great week.